Welcome to Beyond What You See, the series where we highlight stories that remind us of vision, goes beyond sight. Today, we sit down with a man whose journey illustrates how purpose turned pain into power. Mr. Vondale Singleton is a proud graduate of Marquette University Upper Bound Math Science program and the founder of Champs Mentoring. From the Ida B. Wells projects in Chicago to a nationally recognized as a national leader and mentor, his story reveals what it truly means to be destined to lead. So, welcome, Vondale.
Man, thank you so much for having me. I'm
Man, it's
excited. I can't
great.
wait.
Yep, I can't either. We go back live a long way. But let's just jump right into it. You grew up in Ida B. Wells Project in Chicago, an environment filled with challenges, but also with seeds of greatness. How did that place shape your early sense of identity and purpose?
Yeah, growing up in Otter B. Wells was absolutely the precipice to build a strong foundation. It taught me everything that I know now, just in terms of perseverance and being resilient. You're talking about thousands of people in these housing projects on the south side of Chicago. And if you know anything about the south side of Chicago, you know it's gritty. It's a lot of hustle, but it's a lot of committed individuals willing to take the next leap to ensure that they survive and not just survive, but thrive. So, I mean, it taught me everything that I know.
Great. Jesus told his disciples that he needed to go through Samaria. When you reflect on your life, do you ever feel like you had to go through Milwaukee? Why do you think that time in your life in Marquette and Milwaukee in the sound program back then we called it, which is the Upper Bound Math Science program? Why do you think it was necessary for your destiny?
Destiny sees me. Sometimes I look back on my life, and at that time, the projects were being torn down. Gentrification was starting to happen in the 1980s, 1990s. And so my father had actually tried to move out to California out of all places. And what ended up happening, it didn't work. And my aunt and uncle Mike, they left the Otter B. Wells and they went to Milwaukee. Milwaukee is our cousin. Chicago and Milwaukee, we down the street from each other.
Absolutely.
And so my father's like, just go stay by your auntie and uncle house for a little bit until it's time for you to move out to California. Let me get settled. That never happened. And so when you talk about Samaria, there are routes along destiny that we must go to. And destiny sometimes calls us into places that we know not of. I had no idea why I was in Milwaukee, but God knew. And he started to pour a life and put the people around me that was necessary for me to get to the next place of destiny. So it was absolutely important and vital that I go, and Milwaukee became a refuge for me.
Absolutely. Can you tell me more about what's going on beyond what we saw? You're in Milwaukee. Um, Even some of the trials and situations in Chicago, by the time you came to Milwaukee, what was going on?
It was at that particular time, the transition to Milwaukee, I like to call it identity formation. Identity formation was happening without me even knowing. Like it was times where I was trying to make it make sense and it didn't quite make sense. My mom, at that particular point in time, she was going through a rough bout with the crack cocaine epidemic in the 1980s. And as a firstborn, I saw that firsthand, and I saw what it did to the family structure. There's a scripture that say, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." And anytime the house is impacted, then the children are impacted. And as a
Mhm.
child, it was a really trying time just trying to make sense of what my purpose was in the world. But again, God knew exactly what I needed to get me into my place of purpose and my place of destiny. And that was going through Milwaukee. It was meeting yourself and others who poured so much into me and saw so much in me that, again, for myself, I couldn't see it because it wasn't always readily available in the environment that I grew up in. But again, God knows best. And he put, folks around me to ensure that happened.
So let's talk about some of those people that he put around you that led you to Marquette. How did you get to
Yeah.
Marquette University Upper Bound Math Science program, formerly known as SAM?
Yeah. So transitionally, after my mom passed away in high school, unfortunately, I was considered to be homeless. I lived with a family friend, Victor, his mom, Christy. Shout out to the McGee's. I love them forever. They provided a place for me to live and to be in that household. And in that household, it was a household full of love. And along that journey, I met a brother named Brian Jackson in high school at Pulaski High School, and he was telling me about the Upward Bound program and how I needed to join and apply. And he had been talking to me, but I had other priorities. I wanted to play basketball. I was working, and I was just like, man, I don't know if that's for me. See, we got to be careful of what we say isn't for us, because God knows best. And all along, He had a plan. And along that plan, it was for me to go to another Samaria, if you will, the Upward Bound program, in which I met you. And you interviewed me and you asked me about my grades and my life and my story. And for the first time in my life, I told my story. You were the first person that knew
Mm.
my story, my origin story. Um, and it was liberating, but I also knew it was something more happening with that story that would unlock an opportunity for me that would change my life forever. And so, yes.
Right there on that piece right there. Let's stay there for a second. When you told your story, I knew we had to help. I knew that it wasn't just a chance or coincidence. I knew it was something greater. Now, even the story Brian was telling you about Upper Bound Math Science, but on the meantime, we were full. We were oversubscribed with students. We were a couple of months before starting our summer program. So by all knowledge or information, I would be looking for students right then. But I had a group of students in my office, and some of them I just said, anybody know somebody that should be an upper bound? And I just said it. I just spoke it up. I don't know why I said it. And when I said it, Brian said he had a friend. And he was one of about four guys that was in the room. He said he had a friend. And I said, well, I break them down with you. You came down, you told your story for the first time, and that's the first time I knew that it was the first time you told that story. But when you told
Yep.
that story, it was so powerful, and it was like something right there. It was like a something in the sky, a shining. I knew in
Mm,
my gut that there was a divine connection, and I knew in my gut that we needed to do everything we could to help you down. You can finish the story. So.
man. And so that summer of 1997, it was a SAM program at that particular time. Enrolled into the program, and it was just an amazing cluster of so many brilliant and excellent young people across the city and across other cities too. Um, and for me, it was inspiring because for the first time, I can see beyond the moment that I was currently in. My situation wasn't going to be my plight. My situation actually became my motivation. It was to get
Mm.
out and to extend the opportunity. And I just needed that one opportunity. So I truly believe it was a divine appointment with destiny where God used individuals to advance his plan through other individuals. And I just so happened to be a part of that. And I embraced it and I was open to it. And man, I tell the story all the time to the mentees just about the power of mentorship. And when we allow it to do its job in us and through us, beautiful and marvelous things happens.
Great, great, great. So we know that you successfully completed and graduated from Pulaski High School. You had opportunities to go many different places, but you chose and felt a sense of call to go to Oral Roberts University, and you went. And when you went there, talk about that experience, leaving Chicago to come to Milwaukee, and then leaving Milwaukee to go to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Talk about that undergrad experience.
Yeah, the experience was life changing. Here you have a first generational college student migrating to a whole nother state. Here we go again, leaving Chicago, going to Milwaukee, going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, a place I didn't know about. And it was through you who took all of us on the college weekend. And I remember you were saying, and you may remember this, you may not, but I remember you were saying how you went to Rhema Bible training. You said, had I known about Oral Roberts back then, I would have went to Oral Roberts myself. And and so that stuck with me. And when I was there, I just felt the Holy Spirit tugging at my heart, and telling me this was the place that I was supposed to be. And God made it to where it happened. And going along that journey again, leaving 1998, going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to a place I didn't know. Quickly, I understood why I was there. It made sense for me. And I started to build my foundation and understand what my purpose, and I became an education major. And then 4 years later, at the age of 22, getting ready to graduate, I called you up and I said, man, I just want to thank you for what you did for me. What do I need to do to pay you back for what you did for me? And I'll just never forget your words. It was the same thing I did for you, do for somebody else. That's how you pay me back. And then it unlocks something else inside of me to help firm up. Okay, this is my journey now. It's to pay it forward. So it's just amazing, man. You know, a kid from the Chicago housing projects who was told would be dead or locked up before the age of 18, beating the odds, graduating from college, coming back to want to impact and make an impact on those who are the next generation. Man, it's powerful.
Wow, that's so good. Within the Destined to Lead framework, the final stage is dominion. And inside of dominion, where leadership becomes legacy and purpose become multiplication. Do you believe mentors have a responsibility not just to guide others, but to raise up mentors who will continue the work?
Teachers teaching to teach, right? So we get the information, we pass it to the next generation. And the idea is that the baton will never drop across destiny. And for me, I remember when Oral Roberts stood up in one of our chapels when he was alive, and he was teaching, and he said, "Success without a successor is failure." And for me, that's the mission. It's like, yeah, we get the information, we get the levels of success, but we also have the obligation to pay it forward. And I've built my life on that. And the mentors that I work with, staff members that I work with, we try to share that idea, and not just in talk, but in what we do, how we lead, and how we show up in spaces, how we model for those who are watching, because they are watching.
Mm.
And we have an obligation to ensure that we don't present perfection, but we do present progress. And so that's the journey that I'm on. And I will hope that, through the work of what you've instilled in me and so many others, right? Like, that's the idea. It's like, yep, we got it. All right. Now what we do, we take it and we pass it along, and we
Mhm.
kind of keep that chain moving.
Wow. That's so good. You said you want to be the Michael Jordan of mentorship. What does that mean to you? And how does it influenced the culture and the standard that you built through Champs Mentoring and
You
all
know,
the other work that
interesting.
you're doing in Chicago?
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting enough. You know, the first time I actually said that out loud was in the Michael Jordan building at the Nike headquarters. And it was more prophetic than anything. And I only said that because I know Michael Jordan is considered the gold standard, the excellent standard. And so when you talk about Michael Jordan, you can't help but to think of greatness and legacy. And so it's the Michael Jordan of community, the Michael Jordan of giving back. So I intend to continue to build the iterations and prototypes of Michael Jordan in every aspect of life, right? That should be our desire, that we want to be the best at serving God. We want to be the best at serving leadership. We want to be the best in business and government, in the medical field. If we, practicing law, whatever it is, we should aspire to be the absolute best at it, not in competition with anybody else, in our lane. And so that's what I aspire to be and to become, and to also build a legacy where mentorship is considered excellent. It's not just something we do on the side, but it's like excellent work, that we professionalize mentorship. It's like a full-time job, if you will.
Tell us about Champs Mentoring, the incredible work you're doing to change lives, develop leaders, create spaces for brotherhood, healing, transformation. What inspired you to start Champs Mentoring, and how does it reflect your belief that mentorship should be transformative, or it should be able to transform lives as well as be touchable, being right with the people in the midst of it? So talk about the work that you started with Champs Mentoring and the incredible things that's going on in Chicago.
So, like I said, remember at 22 when I made that call to you and I said, what do I need to do to pay you back for what you've done for me? The same thing I did for you, do for somebody else.
Mm.
That stayed with me until I was on my knees one day. I was an assistant principal in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Knowledge is Power program. They call it KIP. And I got on my knees and I started to pray because I knew I was moving back home to Chicago. And I said, what does this all mean? And I had a pad and a pen. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, Champs. And I wrote it down, Champs. I didn't even have an acronym. I just heard Champs, born to win. I'm like, got it. And I started to pray over that thing. And it was culturally helping and making positive success. I wrote it down, got it. And I shared it. And I'll never forget, in 2012, back home in Chicago, I shared it with a group of young men and said, hey, Champs, that's y'all. Y'all born to win. And they
Mm.
like, huh? What? What are you talking about? Champs is when you win something. We ain't won nothing. I'm like, it's prophetic. Y'all about to win everything. You're going to win in life. You're going to win in school, win in your relationships, win. Get winning on your mind. You're champs. You're born to win. And it took off like a rocket. And they started to believe. And it was no longer where I had to go around and try to recruit young men to be a part of Champs. Champs just was a thing. They were recruiting each other. It was young men. Hey, can my cousin be part of Champs? I know he don't go to school here, but can he join? And so we started to figure out a way to get as many young men in a consistent, safe, and peaceful space as we could. And that was almost 12 years ago.
Wow. Leadership, a lot of people talk about leadership, but some of the greater principles that we can just drill down a little bit right here on. I think a good leader first has to see. They have to see somebody. They have to see what's there, but you have to see past what you see to see something that could be there, that could be manifested there. And I think also a good leader has to call, they have to say some things. And sometimes they have to begin to say, you've been born again. You are a champ, even though the score on the clock may not be saying that, but the score on the clock does not dictate or not if you successful or if you're a champ. When you start talking about I'm been born to win, or you have a purpose in life and there's something special about you, you start seeing them and seeing them. But see, a lot of people may go around in their day but may not see people. They may be seeing statistics. They may be seeing a 0, not that person as a 10. But when you see them as a 10, even if you have to look through the eyes of faith and you start to look at them, but you just don't see the deficit, but you see the deposit. You just see what the giftedness, the asset that they already have currently, and what they could be. But then to begin to call that out. So I think a good mentor see them, right? And then I think a good mentor also begin to say, they begin to call out and call forth what they can be and that greatness that's already in them. There's that purpose that they've been ordained to have and to live. We're talking about mentorship that really matters, that's gonna make a difference. Seeing them, but then also calling that thing else for anything else that you live your life by, right? You model your life by. So you start calling things forth, they start coming. They start being a carrier of the vision. They didn't even know they was carriers of the vision. And then they start bringing people to it because they saw it was changing their life and affected their life. And then you was with them, right? You stayed with them, you supported them, you sustained them. When everything else was going on, you was right there living life with them, trying to, figure out, hey, how can we better help them? Now, what? What other things are things that you want to tell to anybody that's in mentorship about how to be effective, right? We all learning, we all growing, but 12 years of some of the things that you accomplished, the Born of Men conferences, even what you're doing with, the MK Chicago MKE program, or MK program, my brother's keepers program. Talk about some of that. What you're doing and how you trying to help other mentors to raise up and to rise up and just be great and have an impact. But that goes back to that legacy that, hey, it's not just about teaching one generation of and pouring in and deposit, but how do I pour into other people that's going to pour into other people and keep it going? Talk about that.
And you know what? You just said it. See, I'm getting excited now because you said see it, say it, and I'm going to add seize it. You got to take advantage of the moment while you have the moment. You have to apprehend the thing that's apprehended you. You got to you got to dig so deep and be so rooted and so planted and not just convicted, but convinced that what your assignment is, nobody, and you said this, nobody can beat you at being you. Once you discover and lock in who you are and who you belong to, you become unstoppable. Greatness has the opportunity to meet greatness. So you can carve out what's inside of somebody. And that's the manifest. I believe in manifestation, right? And I believe manifestation has processes along the way, right? So you get that clay and you begin to shape it like a potter. And some things you have to take out, some things you add in. And again, it's a process of greatness. It's a process of manifestation. And so for me, you see it, you say it, you speak to it, but you seize it. You fully embrace it. And I guarantee that there's a blessing in being a blessing. When we sow into somebody, we're sowing into ourselves. So it was things that you were sowing into me that came back as a blessing to you to say, even in the conversation, man, I'm proud of that boy Vondale. He's doing some amazing things in Chicago, right? But that was your labor that you sowed into me that God actually blessed. So for me, it's a blessing when I meet a young man and they say, man, thank you for what you did for me 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 years ago. You sowed something in me and it stuck with me. And as a result, right? Because success shows impact. It don't hide behind the lack of impact. It has footprints. So that's the greatness that we have, is that when we're pouring into and we're mentoring and we're sowing seeds and we're giving time, or we're giving words of wisdom or advice, or we're showing up for folks who need us at the time where they need us the most, that comes back to our account And God says, I'm going to bless you in this way. I'm going to open up this door. I'm going to have you connect with this person. I'm going to make this go through for you. And I've seen it, man. So the success that we have really is group success. I've seen God take us across the world. I mean, we've been to the White House. We've been to China. We've been to Dubai. We've been to Paris, London. We've been all over the world through the power of mentorship, being a blessing. And as a result, I get a little bit of that. You know, I get to see it a little bit. I don't always get to see it. But when God allows me to see it, man, it just makes me want to keep going even stronger.
That's so crazy. It's so crazy on a whole lot of different levels. I could go a lot of different places. Another S is share it, right? Once
Mm,
you get help and you go through, your person saw it, they said it, they called it out. You seized the opportunity in the moment. You stood with them and you supported them. And there comes a time where you want to get across to them. They have a responsibility to reach back and to share with
right.
somebody else to keep it going. And it 2 Timothy 2 said, Paul told Timothy, a young one of his mentees, one of his young people that he was mentoring, he said, "And the things you heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others also." You have a responsibility to share that thing too. And I think we do an injustice when we let people think that they can get and receive and just not give out. They have a responsibility when you make it. And I tell the students often, when you make it, and you will, that you have a responsibility to give back and help somebody else out.
That's it.
Can you
That's
talk
it.
about back in when you was in Milwaukee, you used to always talk about Ida B. Wells. You was going through what you was going through. You was dealing with trauma. Your mom had died. Your dad was incarcerated. You was basically the McGee's was helping out, but basically you was homeless and by yourself. And then, but you would always talk about going back to Chicago. So even when you went to your next step to Oral Roberts, was you conscious of the fact that you was going to go back to Chicago and you was going to do what you currently doing? Talk about
You
that.
know, you know what? It is so funny. You say that, and my wife say it a lot. Like you used to always talk about going, and I don't really remember it because it was just so a part of me.
Yes,
It was
sir.
like saying my name. Hey, what's your name? Vondale Singleton. I'm going back to Chicago to help my people. But I just don't remember a time where it just like this is something that you were supposed to do. But I do know that the ills and the storytelling and the narratives, right, and the rhetoric around boys and young men of color had a direct impact on me given where I was. It was like the survivor's remorse, right? I was in a place where here I am about to get a degree and about to do something that no one in my family, in terms of my mother, father, was able to do. That came with what you just talked about, a responsibility. And
Abs-
that burden that God gave caused me to want to go back and play a part and play a role and help.
that's so cool. They say that you are divinely orchestrated to help or impact the people that you once were. That you divinely
It's powerful.
orchestrated to help the people that you once was. Legacy isn't what you leave it to people, it's what you leave in people. Vondale Singleton
Mhm.
journey reminds us that destiny is not a destination. It's a process of discovery and divine direction. From Ida B. Wells projects to Marquette University Upper Bound Math Science to Oral Roberts, and now through Champ's mentoring, he's building what has never, he's built some spaces that never was. He's exposing some
Mhm.
people that didn't see it, didn't realize it, but he called it out. He saw it in them. He called it out. They seized the moment. He supported them. He was still there, thick and thin through them, and he's also giving them the wherewithal that they have a responsibility to share with somebody else. So now through
Yeah.
Champs mentoring and Chicago, my brother's keepers, he lead the space. He doesn't just mentor men and boys and men of color. He multiplies mentors. He doesn't just reach the next generation. He raises it. Thank you, Vondale. Anything else you
Thank you
want in
for
the
having
close you
me.
want to say?
Hey, collective change. We get into population level change, and I thank God for my brother's keeper and the work that we're doing. We're working with over 200 organizations and over 13,000 young people across the city of Chicago, and our hope is that we become a blueprint. So follow the work, MBK Chicago, Brilliance and Excellence, Champs Mentoring, and again, I thank you for giving me the blueprint.
And like I said the other day, I'm proud of you. You know, I believe God's proud of you. The world needed you, and even He put that desire and that dream in you. And you talked about it an awful lot. That you grew up in Ida B. Wells, and you was going back to Chicago to do what you're doing right now, changing lives, one destiny at a time. Thank you.
Man.